Admiral Kethvar of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet stood in the command center of his flagship, the Stellar Dominance. Through the large windows, he could see the blue and green world of New Terra growing bigger as his fleet approached. The human colony looked completely defenseless. No battle stations in orbit, no patrol ships, not even basic warning systems. Pathetic, he said with disgust, his four arms clicking together in contempt. These humans cannot even properly defend their own colony worlds. His tactical officer, Sub-Commander Yethrin, pointed to the sensor readings with one of his clawed hands. Admiral, we detect very weak energy signatures from the planet's surface. The population centers show no signs of military preparation. They appear to have no idea we are coming. Of course they do not, Kethvar replied with satisfaction. Their primitive sensors cannot detect our ships until we are almost on top of them. Begin the bombardment sequence. We will eliminate this colony quickly and move on to their Mars settlements. The Zephyrian fleet moved into attack formation like a pack of space predators. 200 warships arranged themselves in perfect bombing patterns. Each ship was 3 times larger than anything humanity was supposed to possess. Their weapons could turn the surface of a planet into molten glass. None of the alien crew members noticed the tiny distortions in space around them. The human ships had been waiting like invisible ghosts, their stealth systems making them undetectable to sensors designed to track much cruder technology. Captain Morgan watched from the bridge of the UES Vengeance as the alien fleet positioned, itself exactly where human computers had predicted they would. They are moving into formation just like our simulations showed, he reported to Admiral Blake through quantum communication. Perfect, Blake's voice responded instantly across the impossible distance. Captain, you are authorized to engage. Show them what happens when you threaten human civilians. Morgan turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant Commander Bell, target their flagship with a full spread of quantum torpedoes. All ships, drop stealth systems and open fire. Throughout the Proxima Centauri star system, 47 massive human warships suddenly appeared out of nowhere as their invisibility systems shut off. The aliens had less than 3 seconds to register the impossible sight before the first wave of human attacks struck home. On the bridge of the Stellar Dominance, chaos erupted as warning alarms screamed through the ship. "Admiral!" shouted Sub-Commander Yethrin, his voice filled with terror. "Massive contacts appearing throughout the system, unknown vessel types, power signatures beyond our measurement scales." Kethvar stared at his tactical display in complete disbelief. The human vessels were enormous, easily 3 times the size of his own flagship. Worse, they were using weapons technology that his scanners could not even properly identify. "Impossible," he whispered, his mandibles clicking with fear. "Our intelligence reports showed they only had primitive chemical rockets. The first quantum torpedo struck the Stellar Dominance's shields, barriers that had been designed to stop the most powerful alien weapons known to galactic civilization. The exotic particles phased through the energy field as if it was not even there, detonating inside the ship's hull with devastating effect. "Shield generators offline," reported the damage control officer, his voice cracking with panic. "Hull! Breaches on decks 7 through 15. Engineering reports complete power loss to main weapon systems." Around the flagship, other Zephyrian vessels were suffering similar catastrophic damage. Human plasma cannons, their energy output calibrated specifically to overcome alien defensive systems, carved through armor that had been considered unbreakable for 1,000 years. Quantum cascade warheads created localized space-time distortions that tore enemy vessels apart at the molecular level. "Admiral!" his communications officer called out in pure terror. "We are receiving transmissions from the human fleet." Captain Morgan's face appeared on their main screen, his expression cold and professional like a judge passing sentence. "Admiral Kethavar, this is Captain Alex Morgan of the United Earth ship Vengeance. You have entered human space with the intent to commit genocide against our colonists. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy your entire fleet." Kethavar's mandibles clicked in rage and complete confusion. "You are primitives! Your technology is thousands of years behind ours. This cannot be happening." Morgan's expression did not change by even the smallest amount. "Admiral, your intelligence was deliberately incomplete and misleading. For decades, we have allowed the galaxy to believe we were primitive while secretly developing technology that makes your so-called advanced systems completely obsolete. You came here to exterminate what you thought was a defenseless colony. Instead, you have encountered the true military might of humanity." "Sir," interrupted Sub-Commander Yethrin, his voice breaking with fear, "long-range sensors detect additional human fleets moving toward our home systems, hundreds of vessels all using the same unknown technology." Kethavar felt his confidence crumbling like a house built on sand as the tactical situation became absolutely clear. His fleet of 200 ships was being systematically destroyed by fewer than 50 human vessels. Even worse, the human attacks were surgical and precise. They could have annihilated his entire fleet in the first few seconds, but were choosing to disable rather than completely destroy. This was not a battle. This was a demonstration of power. "Captain Morgan," Kethavar said, his voice hollow with total defeat, "what are your terms for surrender?" Morgan leaned forward slightly, his eyes hard as steel. "Unconditional surrender. Your surviving vessels will be escorted to a holding area where you will remain until our governments decide what to do with invaders who came to commit genocide against innocent civilians." Around the command center, Kethavar's officers stared at their displays in shock and disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, the mighty Zephyrian Imperial fleet had been reduced to burning wreckage and desperate survivors begging for mercy. "How?" Kethavar whispered to himself. "How did they become so powerful?" On the human flagship, Lieutenant Commander Bell looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, the remaining alien vessels have powered down their weapons and are transmitting surrender codes." Morgan nodded grimly. "Secure the prisoners and begin salvage operations. I want every piece of alien technology analyzed and cataloged." "Sir," reported the communications officer, "Admiral Blake is requesting a status report." Morgan turned to face the main screen as Blake's image appeared. "Admiral, the Zephyrian advance fleet has been neutralized with minimal human casualties. 0, to be exact." Blake smiled with grim satisfaction. "Well done, Captain. What is the enemy status?" 43 vessels destroyed. The remainder have surrendered. We are taking prisoners for interrogation. Any attempts to send warning messages to their home fleet?" "Negative, sir. We jammed all their communications before they could transmit. As far as the main Zephyrian fleet knows, their advance force is still approaching the target." Blake nodded approvingly. "Perfect. That gives us time to deal with the other alien fleets before they realize what has happened. Captain, prepare your battle group for quantum jump to the Nexari system." As Admiral Kethavar was led away in restraints, he realized that everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about humanity had been a carefully planned deception. The species they had mocked as primitive had been preparing for this moment for decades, and now the hunters had become the hunted. The galaxy's balance of power had shifted in a single battle, and the beings who had laughed at humanity's chemical rockets were now prisoners of a species they had fatally underestimated. Inda. The holds of human ships, alien prisoners whispered in terror about the weapons they had witnessed, technology that ignored their best defenses, ships that appeared from nowhere, tactics that turned their greatest strengths into weaknesses. Word would spread quickly through the galaxy. The humans were not the primitive savages the Galactic Council had believed them to be. They were something far more dangerous. They were a species that had been hiding their true capabilities while their enemies revealed all their secrets. The age of alien dominance over the galaxy was ending. The age of human ascendancy had begun with fire and fury, and there would be no going back. 6 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, the emergency session of the Galactic Council met in an atmosphere of pure terror. The crystal chamber that had once echoed with laughter at humanity's expense now trembled with the fear of species that suddenly found themselves facing extinction. The great seats that had once held proud alien rulers were now mostly empty. Of the 47 species that had mocked humanity, only 12 still had representatives alive to attend. The rest had been systematically destroyed by human fleets that moved like ghosts through space. Admiral Ryan Blake stood where ambassador. Jake Morrison had been humiliated less than a year ago, but everything had changed. The alien delegates who had once laughed at humanity now cowered in their seats as holographic displays showed the complete destruction of 3 interstellar civilizations. Members of the former Galactic Council, Blake began, his voice carrying the absolute authority of someone who held the power of life and death over entire species. I stand before you today not as someone asking for your approval, but as the representative of humanity's military forces. You declared war on our species. These are the results of that decision. The displays around the chamber showed the devastating aftermath of Operation Silent Thunder's full implementation. The Zephyrian homeworld, once the proud capital of a 1,000-system empire, was now a quarantined wasteland where nothing lived. The Nexari Collective's vast industrial complexes drifted as radioactive debris in the cold vacuum of space. The ancient Vorthan dynasty, which had ruled the galaxy for millennia, had been reduced to a handful of refugee ships begging for mercy. Former Counselor Zeth Ran, now wearing the simple gray clothing of a prisoner rather than his ceremonial. Golden robes trembled as he tried to speak to the human admiral. "Please," he begged, his once proud voice now broken and weak. "We did not understand. We thought you were primitive beings. We made a terrible mistake." Blake's expression remained as cold as the space between stars. "You made several mistakes. Zethron. You assumed that what you could observe represented our full capabilities. You believed that being older automatically made you wiser. Most critically, you confused our restraint and peaceful nature with weakness. Dr. Katie White, who had once been silenced by alien arrogance in this very chamber, now stood beside the Admiral as Earth's chief science advisor. She looked at the broken aliens with a mixture of pity and contempt. Your species spent thousands of years developing technology in predictable patterns, she explained in a voice that was both patient and condescending. We studied those patterns carefully and found ways to make them completely obsolete. While you focused on making small improvements to existing systems, we developed entirely new approaches to physics itself. The surviving Nexari representative, her cybernetic implants sparking and smoking from damage, spoke through a translator that barely worked. How? How did a species that had not even achieved basic galactic flight develop such impossible capabilities? Admiral Blake activated a holographic display that showed Earth's hidden development over the past 50 years. Secret facilities buried, deep underground. Spacecraft construction yards hidden in asteroid belts. Research stations that officially did not exist. Every crashed scout ship, every probe you sent to spy on us, every piece of technology you carelessly left in our solar system, we studied it all, Blake explained. We learned from your mistakes and weaknesses, while you remained completely ignorant of our progress. You thought you were observing a primitive species. In reality, you were teaching your future conquerors everything they needed to know to destroy you. Fleet Admiral Alex Morgan, recently promoted after his victories at 3-star systems, joined the presentation. His uniform now carried ribbons that represented the complete destruction of alien civilizations. The Zephyrian Empire fell because you relied on energy shields that were completely useless against quantum-phased weapons, Morgan explained with the clinical precision of a scientist dissecting specimens. The Nexari Collective was eliminated. Because your cybernetic systems were vulnerable to quantum viruses, we developed specifically to target your neural networks. The Vorthons were destroyed because your telepathic abilities made you susceptible to psychic warfare techniques that drove your entire species insane. Elder Morden, the once mighty Vorthon leader, could barely project his thoughts through the chamber's translation system. His mental voice was weak and broken. We surrender. All surviving species surrender completely. What terms will you offer us? Blake walked to the center of the chamber where Jake Morrison had once stood in humiliation. His footsteps echoed in the deadly silence like the tolling of funeral bells. There are no terms, Blake said with absolute finality. The Galactic Council declared that humanity was unfit for civilized society. You announced your intention to commit complete genocide against our entire species, including our children. We have responded in exactly the same manner you intended for us. You cannot destroy all of us, whispered a delegate from the Altarian Republic, one of the few species that had tried to remain neutral during the conflict. There must be some mercy. We are not genocidal monsters like you proved yourselves to be, Blake replied. But the old galactic order that mocked and threatened humanity no longer exists. That system died when you decided we were animals that needed to be exterminated. President Lisa Carter's image appeared through holographic projection, addressing the assembled aliens directly from Earth. Her voice carried the authority of a species that now ruled the galaxy through superior firepower. A new order begins. Today, she announced, Earth will establish the Terran Federation, and membership will be offered to species that can prove they are capable of peaceful coexistence with humanity. Those who cannot meet this standard will be confined to their home systems until they evolve beyond their violent and arrogant tendencies. The implications were crystal clear to every alien in the chamber. Humanity, the species that had been rejected for even the lowest level of recognition, was now dictating terms to the galaxy's former masters. Admiral Blake prepared to leave, then paused and turned back to face Zethron directly. You once suggested that humanity might be ready for consideration in another 1,000 years. You were completely wrong. We were ready 50 years ago. We just wanted to observe what you would do when you believed we were helpless and defenseless. As the human delegation departed, the chamber fell into the silence of the grave. The species that had laughed at humanity's primitive chemical rockets were now completely at the mercy of the same beings they had planned to exterminate. In the months that followed, human fleets established order throughout the galaxy with overwhelming force. Species that accepted human authority were allowed to continue existing under strict supervision. Those that resisted were systematically destroyed without mercy or hesitation. The great alien civilizations that had ruled space for millennia were reduced to footnotes in history books written by human scholars. Their technology was studied, catalogued, and improved upon. Their worlds were occupied by human colonists who built new cities on the ruins of alien empires. On Earth, children learned in school about the time when aliens had mocked humanity and planned to kill them all. They learned how their parents and grandparents had prepared in secret for decades. They learned that underestimating the human species was a mistake that entire civilizations had paid for with their existence. The galaxy had a new master now. Humanity had proven that they were not just another primitive species struggling to reach the stars. They were the inheritors of galactic civilization, and they had claimed their inheritance with fire and blood. The age of alien dominance was over forever. The age of humanity stretched ahead into a future where no species would ever again make the mistake of threatening human children or calling Earth's people primitive animals. The stars belonged to humanity now, and the galaxy would never forget the price of underestimating the human race. The best part, Kate continued, is that we're not just saving coral reefs. We're learning things about cooperation and environmental healing that none of our species could have discovered alone. The Delphians understand water systems in ways humans never could. The crystalline beings can grow structures that support marine life for thousands of years. And humans, well, we're good at getting everyone to work together and stay focused on the long-term goal. Jake smiled as he watched. His daughter, now working not just for Earth's oceans, but for the health of water systems across the galaxy. You did it, Dad, Kate's message concluded. You didn't just get humanity accepted into the galactic community. You helped create a better galactic community for everyone. Vextar's crystal body had shifted to the golden color that indicated deep emotion. Your species has given us a gift we did not know we needed. You taught us that being advanced is not just about having powerful abilities. The giant space station called Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was bigger than most moons and sparkled with lights from 1,000 different worlds. Ships of every shape and size came and went from its docking bays. Some looked like crystal flowers. Others moved like swimming fish through space, and a few glowed with their own inner light. Inside the main hall of the station, beings from across the galaxy gathered for an important meeting. The room was huge, with walls that reached up so high they disappeared into shadows. 12 different species sat in their special seats, each designed for their unique bodies and needs. Jake Morrison sat alone at a small desk in the center of the room. He was 52 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. His simple blue suit looked plain compared to the strange and beautiful forms around him. He had been waiting for 3 hours, listening to the aliens talk about his people like they were not even there. The Zenthari delegate towered above everyone else. It looked like a giant insect made of black metal with 6 arms that moved in perfect harmony. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding gears. "These humans are nothing special," it said to its neighbors. "They barely learned to fly between planets. My people mastered space travel when their world was still covered in ice." Near the back of the room, the Delphian ambassador floated in a tank of blue water. Its body looked like a jellyfish crossed with a dolphin, with tentacles that glowed, different colors as it communicated. The water in its tank bubbled as it laughed. "Look at how short their lives are," it gurgled. 80 years if they are lucky. My grandmother has lived for 600 years and she is still considered young. The ethereal collective sent no physical body to the meeting. Instead, a ball of pure energy hovered above an empty chair, shifting between colors that hurt to look at directly. Its voice came from everywhere at once, like whispers in a cathedral. "They are trapped in flesh," it said with obvious disgust. "How can beings so limited by their physical forms ever understand the true nature of the universe?" Jake kept his face calm and wrote notes on his tablet. He had prepared for this reaction. Earth's scientists had studied the other species for years through long-distance observations and intercepted communications. They knew humanity would be seen as primitive and weak. In the highest seat of the chamber sat Council Prime Vextar. It was older than human civilization, a being made of living crystal that changed color with its moods. Right now it glowed a dull red, which Jake's research told him meant boredom. Vexatar had been the leader of the Galactic Council for over 1,000 years. "The humans request membership in our council," Vextar announced, its voice ringing like distant bells. "Let us review their achievements." A hologram appeared in the center of the room, showing images of Earth and human technology. The first image showed a rocket launching into space. Several aliens made sounds that Jake's translator identified as laughter. "Chemical propulsion," snorted Ambassador Kreetok of the Crystalline Communion. Its body looked like a walking mountain of gems. "We gave up such crude methods before your star was born, humans." The next image showed human cities and factories. The energy being that represented the ethereals pulsed brighter. "They still burn dead plants for energy. How wasteful, how destructive." Pictures of human computers and robots came next. The insect-like. Zenthari clicked its mandibles together dismissively. "Their artificial minds are barely more intelligent than their natural ones. A Zenthari child could build better machines from scrap metal." Jake watched as image after image of human achievement was mocked and dismissed. Nuclear power was called playing with dangerous toys. Human medicine was crude cutting and chemical poisoning. Their attempts at genetic engineering were fumbling, in the dark with forces they cannot understand. The Void Wanderers, who lived their entire lives traveling between stars, sent their thoughts directly into everyone's minds. Their mental voice felt cold and empty. Why do they even want to join us? They have nothing to offer. No special abilities, no unique knowledge. They are ordinary in every way. As the presentation continued, Jake noticed something interesting. Each alien species seemed to have one amazing ability that made them special. The Zenthari moved and thought as one perfect group mind when they needed to. The Delphians could control water and weather on entire planets. The ethereals existed as pure energy and could travel faster than light without ships. The Crystalline Communion could grow technology from living crystal and never aged. The Void Wanderers could survive. In the emptiness between stars and needed no food or air, every species had something that made them powerful and unique. Humanity had nothing like that. "Their weapons are primitive," continued the Zenthari. "Chemical explosives and metal projectiles. A single Zenthari battle group could conquer their entire world in days." "Their art is crude," bubbled the Delphian. "They paint with colored mud on flat surfaces. They cannot even create beauty that moves through dimensions." "Their philosophy is shallow," hummed the energy being. "They have not learned to separate their consciousness from their bodies. They fear death because they cannot exist without flesh." Jake kept writing. He had heard all of this before in his preparation. Earth's leaders had warned him that humanity would be seen as backward and useless, but they had sent him anyway, because they believed humans had something worth sharing with the galaxy. The presentation ended with statistics about human population, technology levels, and military capabilities. In every category, humans ranked at the bottom compared to the council species. The shortest lived, the weakest, the most limited by their biology. Vextar's crystal body shifted to a darker red. Do the humans have anything to say in their defense? Any unique contribution they can offer to galactic civilization? Jake stood up slowly. The room fell quiet as hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and energy fields focused on him. He felt very small and very alone, but his voice was steady when he spoke. "Honored council members," he said, "I ask permission to present humanity's case tomorrow. I need time to prepare my full response to your questions." The request caused a stir of amusement throughout the chamber. Several aliens made sounds their translators registered as chuckling or giggling. "Very well," Vextar said, its color shifting to what Jake recognized as condescending patience. "You have 15 minutes tomorrow to make your case, though I suspect it will be more of a farewell speech than a proposal." The Zenthari delegate leaned forward on its 6 arms. "Tell me, human, what could your species possibly offer us? You have no great strength, no amazing technology, no special powers. You live short lives and die easily. What makes you think you belong among the stars with us?" Jake looked directly at the towering insect creature. "Tomorrow, Ambassador, I will show you what makes humans different. What we offer is not strength or technology or special powers. It is something else entirely." The chamber erupted in more laughter and dismissive comments. Jake gathered his notes and prepared to leave. As he walked toward the exit, he heard the aliens already discussing other business, as if humanity was already forgotten. But Jake smiled slightly as he left the room. Tomorrow would be very different. Tomorrow, he would show them what humans were really made of. As Jake finished his speech, alarms began sounding throughout Nexus Prime. Red lights flashed in the Great Assembly Hall, and urgent messages appeared on every alien communication device. The crisis in the Kepler sector had suddenly become much worse. Council Prime Vextar's crystal body shifted to deep purple, a color that meant emergency. "All representatives, we have received urgent updates from the Kepler sector. The stellar collapse is happening faster than predicted. We have less than 48 hours to evacuate 3 worlds. The chamber immediately erupted in chaos. The Zenthari delegates clustered together, their 6 arms moving in rapid gestures as they communicated through their hive mind. The Delphian Ambassador's tentacles flashed bright red with alarm. The ethereal energy form pulsed rapidly between different colors. "The Zenthari fleet can evacuate our colony world," announced the lead insect delegate. "But our ships are designed for our species only. We cannot carry other life forms safely." The Delphian bubbled frantically in its water tank. "Our people on the water world can be transported in our bioships, but the aquatic environment would kill air-breathing species." "We cannot help the others." The ethereal's voice echoed through the chamber. "Our energy beings can flee to safety instantly, but we have no way to transport physical creatures. Matter and energy cannot mix in our transport methods." Jake watched, as each species focused only on saving their own people. The 3 threatened worlds had mixed populations, with colonies from different species living together. But each alien race was only prepared to rescue their own kind. "What about the mixed colonies?" asked Ambassador Kreetalk, its crystal body glowing with concern. The research stations have Xanthari, Delphian, and other species all working together. Each species must arrange their own evacuation, replied the Xanthari delegate coldly. We cannot be responsible for aliens who chose to live away from their own kind. The Delphian colonies can offer temporary shelter in our underwater cities, the aquatic alien offered, but only for species that can survive in high-pressure water environments. Jake stood up from his seat. Council members, if I may make a suggestion. Several aliens turned to stare at him with what his translator identified as disbelief. The Xanthari delegate's mandibles clicked dismissively. Human, this is a crisis requiring advanced technology and superior coordination. Your primitive species cannot possibly help in a situation like this. Jake smiled calmly. Actually, we already are helping. He activated his tablet again, and the holographic display showed the live feed from Earth. Dr. Lisa Carter was now surrounded by dozens of screens showing communication attempts with the Kepler sector worlds. Lisa, can you hear me? Jake said into his communication device. Jake! Perfect timing, Lisa's voice came through clearly. We've established communication with all 3 threatened worlds. Ben has decoded enough of their languages to talk to the mixed populations directly. On the screens behind Lisa, Ben Rodriguez was speaking into multiple communication devices, switching between different alien languages. His voice could be heard translating between Xanthari clicking sounds, Delphian color flashes, and ethereal energy pulses. What is he doing? Asked the Delphian ambassador, its tentacles changing to colors that meant confusion. He's coordinating the evacuations, Jake explained. Not just for each species separately, but for everyone together. Ben has been working for 36 hours straight to learn enough of your languages to help organize the rescue efforts. Amy Foster appeared on the screen next to Lisa. She was holding up blueprints and speaking rapidly to a team of engineers. Jake, we've designed emergency transport modules that can be built using materials available on the threatened worlds. They're not fancy, but they'll keep different species alive during evacuation flights. How is this possible? Asked the crystalline. Communion representative. Your people have no experience with our biology or our technology. Amy looked directly at the camera. We studied everything humanity has learned about your species. Then we asked ourselves what each species would need to survive, and we designed simple solutions. The modules have adjustable atmosphere, temperature, and pressure controls, basic life support that adapts to different alien needs. The holographic display split to show different views from Earth. In one window, human engineers were building prototype evacuation modules. In another, teams of linguists worked alongside Ben to establish communication with panicked alien colonists. In the Kepler sector. A third screen showed medical teams researching emergency treatment for different alien biologies. But what stunned the assembled aliens most was a fourth screen showing ordinary humans across Earth. Children were drawing, pictures with messages of hope in broken alien languages. Elderly people were knitting blankets designed to comfort species they had never met. Families were packing emergency supplies for aliens they had only seen in textbooks. This makes no sense, said the Void Wanderer representative, its mental voice echoing with bewilderment. Why are your people working so hard to help beings who have insulted and rejected them? Jake looked around the chamber at the confused alien faces. Because that's what we do. When someone needs help, we help them. It doesn't matter if they like us or not. On the screen, Lisa was coordinating with international space agencies. Jake, We've got transport ships launching from 6 different countries. They're not as advanced as the alien vessels, but they can carry the emergency modules to the Kepler sector. Your ships are too slow, protested the Xanthari delegate. Human spacecraft cannot reach the Kepler sector in time to matter. You're right, Jake admitted. That's why we're asking you to carry our rescue modules in your faster ships. We provide the equipment and coordination, you provide the transportation. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity was offering to supply the rescue operation that the advanced alien species had been unable to organize themselves. Council Prime Vextar spoke slowly. Let me understand this correctly. Your species is volunteering to design, build, and coordinate an evacuation system for 3 worlds full of aliens, using ships belonging to species that have spent 2 days explaining why humans are inferior and useless. That's right, Jake said simply. And you expect nothing in return? Jake shook his head. We expect to save lives. That's enough. The ethereal energy form pulsed rapidly. But you cannot even guarantee that your rescue plan will work. You have no experience with interstellar emergencies. You could be wasting time and resources on a futile gesture. Maybe, Jake agreed. But we have to try. Because if we don't try and people die, then we failed them. If we try and fail, at least we know we did everything we could. On the communication screen, Ben Rodriguez looked up from his translation work. His eyes were red with exhaustion, but his voice was steady. Jake, I've got family groups separated across all 3 worlds. Parents looking for children, children crying for parents they can't find. The alien evacuation plans are splitting up families because they're focused on species-based rescue rather than keeping social groups together. Amy Foster nodded grimly. The alien ships are designed to carry their own people efficiently, but they're not set up for the mixed communities that actually exist on these worlds. Families and work teams that include multiple species are being broken up. Jake turned to face the assembled aliens. This is what I mean about hope. It's not just about keeping people alive. It's about keeping them connected to what makes life worth living. The Delphian ambassador's tentacles had changed to a color Jake's translator identified as deep thought. The human is correct. Our evacuation plans are logistically sound, but they do not account for the social bonds that exist between different species. The Xanthari delegate's mandibles clicked uncertainly. The hive mind does not understand this concept of bonds between different species. How can creatures think as one when they are so different? They don't think as one, Jake explained patiently. They care for each other as individuals. A Xanthari scientist and a Delphian artist working together in a research station have learned to trust each other, to rely on each other. Separating them now would cause emotional damage that might be worse than the physical danger. On the screen, Lisa Carter was now coordinating with alien emergency services. We're uploading our coordination protocols to your emergency networks. Now, our system tracks individuals, not just species groups. It keeps families and work teams together during evacuation. The crystal being Kree-Talk stepped forward. The humans are offering us something we did not realize we needed. Not just rescue equipment, but rescue wisdom. Vextar's body had shifted to a color Jake had never seen in his research. A gentle gold that pulsed slowly. In 1,000 years of leading this council, I have never seen such a response to a crisis. Not just from humans, but the effect humans are having on all of us. Jake smiled. That's what hope does. It spreads. It makes everyone stronger. 6 months after the Kepler sector crisis, Jake Morrison stood in the same great assembly hall of Nexus Prime, but everything had changed. The chamber buzzed with genuine cooperation instead of formal politeness. Alien species that had barely spoken to each other for centuries were now working together on projects neither could have completed alone. At the center of the room, a mixed team of Xanthari engineers and Delphian artists were collaborating with ethereal theorists to design a new type of space station. The project had seemed impossible before humans introduced the concept of cross-species emotional coordination. Now the logical precision of the Xanthari merged smoothly with Delphian creativity and ethereal energy manipulation, guided by human coordinators who helped each species understand how their unique abilities could support the others. Jake walked through the station corridors on his way to a meeting with Council Prime Vextar. In the 6 months since the emergency, he had not returned to Earth. Instead, he had taken a new position as the first coordinator of interspecies compassionate response. It was a job that had never existed before because no one had thought it was needed. The corridors themselves showed the changes. Where once each species had lived in completely separate sections, now there were mixed areas designed for multiple types of beings. Xanthari living spaces with flowing water features for visiting Delphians. Delphian areas with crystal growing stations for crystalline communion guests. Even the energy beings of the ethereal collective had created spaces where they could interact safely with physical creatures. Jake passed a group of young aliens from different species playing together in a common area. A small Xanthari, no bigger than a human child, was carefully building a crystal structure while a young Delphian swam in a shallow pool nearby, offering suggestions through color changes. An ethereal energy being hovered above them both, its form shaped into gentle patterns that seemed to amuse the others. "Ambassador Morrison," called a familiar voice. Jake turned to see Ambassador Kretok approaching, its crystal body now glowing with warm colors that indicated happiness and friendship. "Just Jake, please," he replied with a smile. "How are the new mining operations going?" "Better than we ever imagined possible," Kretok replied. "The combined crystalline Xanthari teams are extracting resources with 90% greater efficiency than either species achieved alone. But more importantly, the work teams report higher satisfaction and better morale than we have seen in centuries." Jake nodded. "People work better when they feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves." "Is that more human wisdom?" Kretok asked, though its tone was fond rather than mocking. "Actually, I think it's universal wisdom," Jake said. "Humans just had to learn it the hard way." Jake continued on to his meeting with Vextar, stopping briefly to check on a communication station where Ben Rodriguez was training a mixed group of translators from different species. Ben had never returned to Earth either. His work bridging communication barriers between species had become too valuable to the new galactic cooperation efforts. "How's the Universal Language Project coming along?" Jake asked. Ben looked up from a console covered with alien symbols and wave patterns. "Slowly but surely. We're not trying to replace anyone's native language, just creating a common system that lets everyone communicate complex emotions and ideas across species barriers. The interesting thing is that each species is contributing concepts that the others never had words for. A young Delphian in a small mobility tank added its tentacles to the conversation, flashing colors that Ben's translator rendered as speech. The humans taught us the concept of nostalgia, longing for something from the past. We never had a word for that feeling before." A Xanthari trainee clicked its mandibles thoughtfully. "And the Delphians taught us flow joy, the happiness that comes from moving in harmony with natural forces. The hive mind knew the experience, but had no individual word for it." Jake smiled and moved on toward the council chambers. Amy Foster passed him going the other direction, her arms full of blueprints and her tablet showing holographic schematics. "New project?" Jake asked. "Emergency response stations," Amy replied excitedly. "We're building them throughout the galaxy, not just for natural disasters, but for any situation where different species need to work together quickly. Each station has adaptable life support, universal communication arrays, and coordination centers staffed with trained interspecies facilitators. All based on lessons from the Kepler crisis?" Jake guessed. "Exactly. We learned that most galactic emergencies aren't really technology problems, they're cooperation problems. Advanced alien civilizations have amazing tools, but they needed help learning how to use those tools together." Jake finally reached the council chambers, where Vexitar was waiting for him. The ancient crystal being's body now glowed with colors Jake had learned to recognize as deep contentment and peaceful satisfaction. "Jake," Vexitar said, using his first name as all the council members did now, "I have the reports from the Kepler sector recovery operations. Good news, I hope?" "Better than good," Vexitar replied. "All 3 worlds have been fully evacuated and their populations successfully relocated. But more than that, the mixed communities that were saved together have requested to remain together in their new homes. We are seeing the formation of the first truly multi-species colonies in galactic history." Jake sat down in the chair that had been added to the council chambers for him. "How are the different species adapting to living together permanently?" "There have been challenges," Vexitar admitted. "Differences in biology, culture, and communication styles create daily problems. But they are solving these problems together. Using techniques your people taught us, they talk through their difficulties instead of simply avoiding each other." Vexitar's body shifted to display what Jake now knew was a visual representation of statistical data. "Colony productivity is up 40% compared to single-species settlements. Innovation rates have increased by 60%. Most surprisingly, individual happiness and life satisfaction surveys show improvements across all species." "That makes sense," Jake said. "Diversity makes communities stronger, but only if the different groups learn to support each other instead of competing." "There is something else," Vexitar continued. "The Council has been discussing a fundamental change to our structure. For 1,000 years, we have operated as a confederation of separate species, each contributing their unique abilities to common projects. But we have realized that this approach has limitations." Jake waited for the ancient being to continue. "We want to become something new, not just a collection of different species working together, but a true galactic community. One where the goal is not just to use each species' special abilities, but to help every individual reach their full potential, regardless of their species." Jake felt a warmth in his chest that he recognized as pride, not just for humanity, but for all the species in the galaxy. "That sounds like a wonderful goal. It will require new laws, new institutions, new ways of thinking about citizenship and belonging," Vexitar said. "And we want humans to help design these changes, not because you have superior technology or special powers, but because you understand something the rest of us are still learning." "What's that?" "You understand that true strength comes not from being the best at something, but from helping others be the best they can be." Jake stood and walked to the chamber's main viewport, looking out at the stars. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved through space around Nexus Prime, no longer segregated by species but mixed in crews that included beings from multiple civilizations. "There's something I want to share with you," Jake said. "A message from Earth." He activated his tablet, and a holographic image appeared showing his daughter Kate. She was standing on a beach, but it was not the damaged coral reef she had been studying before. This reef was vibrant and healthy, teeming with life. "Hi, Dad." Kate's recorded message began. "I wanted to show you the results of the coral restoration project, but this isn't just human work anymore. We're collaborating with Delphian ocean specialists and crystalline communion bioengineers. The techniques we're developing here are being adapted for ocean restoration on 12 different worlds." The image shifted to show Kate working alongside. Young Delphians and crystal beings, all of them focused on the same goal of healing damaged marine ecosystems.